The Grinch needs to change.
You heard it here first.
Hot take, The Grinch was always right. Hello everyone, and Merry Christmas, and welcome to a very special episode of Nostalgia Bait, the show where I compare different adaptations of the same book to see if saying the older one was better is true, or if saying that is just a nostalgia talking. Today we are joined by a very special guest and regular Christmas guest on this channel now.
Yeah, that's true.
My sister Brianna! Hi! So we are going to be looking at a Christmas book adaptation today. We're going to be looking at the 3 different movie adaptations of How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. The animated one from 1966, the live action one from 2000, and the most recent animated one from 2018. If you have never watched a Nostalgia Bait video before, how this works is that we are going to be breaking this down into several different categories, looking at characters, settings, the overall story, stuff like that, and we're going to be ranking these based on how well we think each one captures these characters or these aspects of the story, and then they will be given points in regard to wherever they are in the ranking. The movie with the most points at the end wins, and that is the best Christmas adaptation of The Grinch. We won't be looking at how well of an adaptation it is. We won't be looking at how accurate it is. We're just going to be looking at them as a movie itself. Because there are some movies that are pretty good but do make some changes and add to the stories. So the first thing we're going to dive into is the story. The first one, the 1966, pretty basic storyline. This is the only one I'm going to summarize because the other ones just sort of add things to it, and we'll just talk about what each one added. In the 1966 version, it is fairly consistent with the original book. It's basically, there are the Who's in Whoville who love Christmas and have all these crazy toys and instruments and all these fun things, and there's the Grinch who lives up in the mountain who hates Christmas and hates the Who's. He decides that in order to deal with this, he's going to dress up as Santa and try to steal everything. He does so through various surprising antics, ends up almost dumping things off of the mountain, but realizes that the Who's are still happy despite not having their things, realizing that Christmas is not about stuff, it's about the people you spend it with. The Grinch has a change of heart. He brings everything back, and he's accepted by the Who's to celebrate Christmas. Any other thoughts on that one?
Well, I think that it's worth noting Dr. Seuss was heavily involved in it because it was meant to be a direct adaptation of the book. There is something to be said for that.
The 2000 live action version, it keeps obviously the same story, but adds a little bit more backstory for the Grinch. We see him messing with the Who's before he decides to ruin Christmas. We see why he hates Christmas, being humiliated as a child when he attempted to celebrate Christmas and find love. And we see the way that he is having that trauma sort of revisited. We also got a storyline with Cindy Lou Who, who's really barely in the first movie at all. Like, she's not really a significant character in the original story, but we see her starting to have doubts about Christmas because the Who's are very focused on commercialism and overconsumption, and she's starting to have doubts of whether that Christmas is all about. So she decides to try and figure out the story of the Grinch so that if he can come back to Christmas, and perhaps she can as well. The Grinch ends up having a change of heart after the Who's at first are a bit sad about their presence, and then after a rousing speech by Cindy's father. The Who's are very easily swayed in this movie. That's something I noticed that I've never noticed before. They all just realize that it is about people, not stuff. Everything ends up fixed in the end again.
I feel like this story was made more to be a theatrical film and definitely plays more into the adult jokes. Not inappropriate, always. Sometimes, yes. Have you seen the Whobilation? I do think that, that makes it a little bit more entertaining in some ways as a story, and that's something that I think lives up to its name long after it's come out.
So the 2018 version is also a longer adaptation of the story, but it has a very different approach to it. This one is also animated. In this movie, we do get a bit of backstory for the Grinch, where he was an orphan and wasn't really included in any Christmas, so he's very lonely. We see the Grinch sort of in the lead up to Christmas trying to mess with the Who's and going down to Whoville. And we also see Cindy has a backstory as well, where her mother is a single mother of 3 children. She's working every single night to support them. And Cindy decides that she wants to give a letter to Santa to get him to do something nice to help her mom, but ends up losing her letter and decides instead to trap Santa on Christmas Eve so that she can ask him then. This movie spends a lot more time on the preparation. The other movies is sort of a very short period of time. He kind of decides the day of that he's going to do it. But this movie shows sort of weeks of preparation for the actual stealing. At the end, you know, he has a change of heart. He brings everything back. And he gets reconnected and gets to celebrate Christmas again.
I feel like in the first couple of movies, the preparation is really just a montage. It doesn't take very long. It's not an important part of the story, whereas in the 2018 version, the preparation is the bulk of the movie, which is an interesting take, and they took a lot of creative liberties with the story as well, which, fair enough, you have to if you're making something that was originally a short storybook into a full-length feature film.
And we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about some of the individual characters, but there are some things in this movie that I actually really like the changes, and I think they make a lot of sense, and then there are some things that I think just don't work. It doesn't feel like it's being set up properly. To me, it feels like all those like Disney adaptations recently where they're making all the villains not actually that bad. And there's a way you can do that well, which I think the 2000 version does well, is they are able to give him a reason, but he's still mean.
Yeah.
But in this one, he doesn't really feel mean anymore. It just feels like, and we'll talk about this more in the Grinch section, but I do think it's significant to the story.
Yeah.
Because if the idea is that it's this like horrible, Grinchy thing that doesn't like Christmas, then if he's not really an awful guy, then it doesn't really work for his sort of change of heart at the end.
Well, and it's interesting, too, that you say, is he mean? Because, you know, the song is called You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. But in the original movie and story, is he really that mean? Or is he just grumpy and not like Christmas?
I think, yeah, you're right. He is just sort of grumpy. He doesn't like Christmas. But I do think it is still funny because even if he's not being really necessarily mean to the Who's, man's a hater. Like, he just spends his day standing and glaring down at the town. They don't know he's doing it. Like, we never see the Who's sort of know who the Grinch is in the original.
Yeah. And it's done very differently between the 2 full-length adaptations.
We're going to cut off the story part there because we obviously want to move on and talk about the Grinch. So I would say, from my ranking, I'd say the best one is the 1966 version, and then 2000, and then 2018 for story.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. So let's move on to talking about the Grinch. We already kind of talked about a bit the animated Grinch from 1966. You know, he's not that mean to the Who's. The only time he really interacts with them is sort of stealing Christmas. But I think there is sort of a lot of unsaid characterization of him just through the way he acts on his own and like the way he's described and the way everything about him looks.
Yeah. He is I mean, quite creepy.
Yeah, absolutely. That
even
smile.
for being a cute little cartoon. Yeah, the smile is not cute.
I think the Grinch is really, really well done in the 2000s version.
Well, and I mean, I've talked about this before. I don't think anybody could have pulled that off like Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey becomes that character, and he completely reinvents it as his own. I actually read recently that his inspiration for the voice was Sean Connery.
Really?
Which you can totally... I don't know why. Like, the connection between Sean Connery and the Grinch, who knows? The suit, it takes them, like, hours to
we
put
had
it
to
on,
train
right?
with a CIA specialist on surviving torture.
If you have not seen that interview on Graham Norton's show with Jim Carrey, it's a story worth checking out. Yeah, but he did so amazing and honestly worthy of an Oscar.
Yeah.
If nothing else, for the pure labor of putting it on.
I mean, he mimics the facial expressions so well.
Perfectly.
The mannerisms so well as well. Even though we have these moments where they do make us feel bad for the Grinch, and they do have a backstory where like, okay, I can see why he hates the Who's, and you do kind of end up rooting for him because you're like, capitalism, blah. But at the same time, you can see that he's doing really terrible things. But he does have these moments of kindness as well, like when he scares Cindy Lou Who, but she doesn't let her be crushed to death. I think the relationship between him and Cindy Lou Who is really important. She allows him to have that balance of also having this like potential for being nice.
It's worth noting too the backstory, because obviously in the both full-length movies we mentioned, there has to be some sort of backstory set up. for the character. And I think that the 2000 version is such an interesting take on childhood trauma and healing through it, because really you're watching him heal from an emotional roller coaster he's been through, and that's why he's isolated himself, and it's just a very excellent commentary on psychology.
So the 2018 version, they also, because they had a longer runtime, attempt to have a backstory for the Grinch. I think it falls very flat. Basically, the backstory is just that he was an orphan and he never had a family to celebrate Christmas with. But I'll tell you why that doesn't make sense. We are regularly shown in Whoville that Christmas is a very community-oriented activity. There's like a community tree lighting and community like Christmas events, and they all meet up with different people and carol together. So even if he didn't have a family, it would be very easy for him to just go to one of these community activities. I see what they're trying to do, but instead of making him mean, they just make him sad.
He's also not very creepy.
He's not. It's just too cute, and he's too nice. He goes down to Whoville regularly to do his shopping. There's a who thinks that the Grinch is his friend. Well, the other ones feel exaggerated in his hatred for Christmas. Just feels like a guy who's annoyed with his homeowners association. I'd say he's rude, but I wouldn't say he's a mean one. Mr. Grinch.
I don't have anything against Benedict Cumberbatch either, but I don't know if that was the best casting. Sorry. It's weird in the sense that it's not a faithful enough adaptation to what the Grinch is supposed to be, but then also doesn't reinvent it in an entertaining enough way.
Yeah. Do you want to say your ranking first this time?
Well, this is so hard. I think that the Grinch was reinvented in the most imaginative way. Still faithful, but in a way that was best for the movie in 2000. So I would put 2000 in first place, 1996 in second, and 2018 in third.
I agree with you. So now let's talk about the only other major character, and that's Cindy. Not much to say about her with the 1966 version. She's not really that significant of a story character. She's just someone who shows up and asks him. And in this movie, she doesn't really provide any sort of like turning point for the Grinch.
Well, she's a toddler.
They say she's not even 2. This is a baby.
Well, even when he meets her in the original, he doesn't change. He doesn't have really any change of heart at all. It's not really affected. He just almost gets caught.
Yeah.
Maybe as well it's to kind of give a hope in humanity a little bit.
Yeah.
Perhaps that if we look at Christmas through the eyes of a child, then it's a little bit more pure.
Now talking about Cindy Lou Who from the 2000 movie, obviously she gets a lot more of a storyline. I think she's quite a cute kid. Might be partially because of the fact that she's the only one that has a normal nose, and so that's, by, comparison. She's got a very iconic song in it as well.
Can I also just say, I very much appreciate that they did not auto-tune or alter her voice in any way. I don't even think that she recorded it in a studio for that scene. I think she was singing it live, and for all the faults and off keys and whatever was going on, they kept it in, and bless them that they did, because she sounded like a real kid, and it was very heartwarming, even though it was a little off key at some points.
She kind of triggers this change of heart for the Grinch, where when he sees her at that night, when he's pretending to be Santa, she asks Santa to bring something to the Grinch because she thinks that he shouldn't be alone for Christmas.
They developed a bit of a relationship. Yeah. She's kind of the catalyst to him having a change of heart, and like kind of accept, like he kind of goes back to Whoville because of her. Yeah. She's quite a significant character.
And she's a spunky little kid. Like, she like calls out the mayor in front of everybody, and she's like going around and interviewing people. One of the things I did notice that I thought was funny that I'd never noticed before is the fact that she's not really doing this completely altruistically. I had always remembered kind of like, oh yeah, she's doing this because like she wants the Grinch to experience Christmas. And then I realized, and like she's having doubts about Christmas, and then she's interested in why does the Grinch have it. And then she said something, she was like, well, maybe if you come to the Whobilation and you can fix Christmas, and maybe it'll be all right for me too. And I'm like, oh.
I myself am having some Yuletide doubts.
Yeah, so it's really kind of like, yeah, there is some like kindness there, but then at the same time, there is sort of this like, I'm having problems, and if you, the worst person I know, can be okay, then maybe I can be okay too.
It's hard to do a precocious child well and have them not be annoying, and I don't think she's annoying.
All right, and then the 2018 version of Cindy, she also has her own backstory. Single mother, she wants to get a
She's not a single mother.
No, she's not a single mother. Her mom is a single mom. She has 2 younger brothers who are twins. She wants her mom to, have help for Christmas. I think this Cindy's a really cute kid. I think she's a good kid. We get to see her with her friends as well, and she isn't like this one-dimensional character either, which I like. She isn't just like, oh, my mom, I need to do these things for my mom. Like, she has friends, and she is quite, like, adventurous. So I do think it's fun that we do get to see her being a kid. And one of the things I really like is that when she sees the Grinch, he also has this sort of turning point for him when she meets him there, because instead of asking for something for the Grinch, because she's not met him at this point, she asks him, Santa, to do something nice for her mom. And he realizes, like, oh, this kid doesn't want presents, she wants help for her mom. I do think that falls flat with, like, the way the Grinch is the Grinch's problem is that he's not had family. It's not that he hates presents, it's that he hates families. And then at the end of the movie, there's actually quite a bit of storyline after the Grinch returns the presents in this version. He returns the presents and then he leaves and goes back home, and then Cindy comes back up the mountain and invites him to Christmas with her family.
Is she a little bit older? Or maybe about the same age, just different characterization.
I think she'd be around the same age, just different characterization. But she does feel more like an animated child than like a real child.
From what I remember, Cindy Lou in the newest version is more of a main character. But she's a main character in 2000 as well, but not to the... It really focuses more on the Grinch. I think it is kind of half and half between the two of them.
No,
if not half
is.
and half, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
She gets a lot of screen time, and there's a lot more story to her side as well.
In this one, it's not just like... The Who's aren't sort of like super materialistic. They are fairly, community-based and people-based. But Cindy does feel bad when everything gets stolen because she thinks it's her fault, because she was like, oh, I trapped Santa and he got mad at me and he stole everything. And then her mom says, Cindy, he didn't steal Christmas, he stole stuff. And like her mom is the one that kind of gives this lesson to her, which I do think is nice too.
It's much more humanizing, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. As far as the characterization for Cindy, I think that I'm going to say, for me, the 2000 version is, I think, the best characterization of Cindy. In second place, I'm going to put the 2018 version. And then I'm going to put the 1966 version in third place, just because there's really nothing to say about the character.
No, I would have done the same thing, but I didn't want to bias you.
So now we're going to talk about Max, everyone's favorite good boy. All right. In the 1966 version, I think Max is very cute. He is very mistreated, but he's okay in the end. He's a very loyal dog.
He's a good boy.
He's a very good boy. 2000 version, I love a dog actor as long as they're treated well.
I felt bad for this dog actor, I will say.
Yeah.
There were a few parts where it looked genuinely terrified of the creature in front of it.
He's such a good boy, though. He's so sweet. He's so cute. And then the 2018 version, you don't remember anything about this Max?
No.
This Max I actually really, really liked. I think Max is the best part. Well, one of the best parts of this movie. He's very cute. He's super loyal to the Grinch. He sleeps under this, like, kitchen table, and he's got a photograph, a framed photo of him and the Grinch in his sleeping area.
I do remember that.
He, does everything for the Grinch in the morning. His tail is always wagging.
More of a duo.
They're more of a duo. The Grinch is so much nicer to Max in this movie.
Well, I have to wonder, in the original story, Max is really only there to aid with the reindeer part of the plan. And that's kind of his main... Similar to Cindy Lou, they serve one purpose. They're not really fleshed out as characters because the Grinch is really the only character in the original context of the story. Then, in the 2000 version, he is more of a dog. Because, well, it is
a dog.
He is a dog. And he's his pet. And it's a nice little companion for him, I think. He is used in the stealing. He doesn't go to... He does go into town with him.
I think it kind of shows the Grinch doesn't really want to be alone.
Yeah.
He does have this dog, and, he could have easily, gotten this dog to go away. But Max just keeps coming back.
He definitely is more of a character. They really did a good job with fleshing out the characters, giving them more of a story.
How would you rank Max in the 3 movies?
I would say 2018 first.
Okay.
2000 second. 1966 third.
Okay.
What would you say?
I like the characterization of Max in the 2018 version, but I feel like there's something to be said about, like, I want to give at least, like, half a point to the dog actor in the 2000 version, just for being a good boy. So now we're moving into the Who's, and this is specifically the Who's, not Whoville, because we're going to talk about Whoville when we talk about the setting. So the Who's in the 1966 version, pretty cute. They look like, you know, Dr. Seuss illustrations. They're little, hairy little guys.
Yeah, they're cute. They're not, like, ugly or...
No.
Off-putting.
Oh, well, we'll get to that. Because they're, like, kind of hairy, like the Grinches, that you can kind of see, like, why the Grinch is, like, similar to them. Probably just a Who that just has green fur. And also, I think the Who's are, like, not that annoying. Like, personality-wise. Like, they just like Christmas. They just like having fun. 2000 version. Oh my gosh. Who's responsible?
About unsettling and obnoxious.
It's like they wanted them to look like the original Who's, but they didn't want to commit to putting all the actors into fur. So they're like, well, we'll just change your facial structure and that's enough.
If the original Who's, do they have feet?
They have feet like the Grinch. Like, the Grinch has, like, those, like, long, floppy feet.
Because I just remember Cindy Lou, when she's walking, it's just, like, she's wearing a dress, and there's no feet. It's just kind of, like, she's just floating.
Well, Cindy Lou doesn't have a feet in the original.
What's wrong with her?
She's a baby.
She
Babies
developed
don't
her
have
feet yet.
She also has antennas in the first one.
That's true. Do the rest of them don't have antenna?
That's just her.
So why is she not considered the freak?
She's a baby.
Sorry, Cindy Lou.
New version of the Grinch, 2025. The Grinch, fine. Cindy Lou, the freak.
In the 2000 version, I also
I just hate the Who's.
Yeah.
I honestly relate to the Grinch. I'd give them all jury duty as well.
The children in the school during the flashback are kind of awful.
The
teacher is so mean. When he shows up and he's got all the cuts on him and she just laughs, the kids are all laughing at him and the teacher just laughs along.
I understand we're supposed to not like the Who's, because the whole point is supposed to be like a commentary on, like, capitalism and overconsumption, and they ask my generation how we got radicalized. We grew up watching the Grinch.
Well, it's interesting too with the 2000 version, because the ones that have no nose prosthetics are considered the most beautiful.
Yeah.
Martha May doesn't have the full nose prosthetics, and she's considered to be the most beautiful or glamorous Who. Is that plastic surgery? Or is that just how she grew into it? I'm going off topic now.
This is interesting, though, because, I mean, if we're saying that, because the mayor does say Cindy hasn't grown into her nose yet, so that seems to be something you grow into. So are we saying that she just... Martha May just has, like, a baby face, and by Who standards? I do love the costuming for the Who's. I think the costuming is great. I think it captures that sense of whimsy, while also being a bit more modern, and also capturing the kind of idea of, like, it feels almost a bit like fast fashion in a sense, but it has kind of a sense of, like, playfulness and whimsicalness that you'd see with something in Dr. Seuss. The 2018 Who's, I don't know how much you remember.
I only remember Pentatonics running after him through the street and singing God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. I don't know why they did that. I don't know if Pentatonics was involved in that or they took it without their permission. Either way.
Does Pentatonics know?
Somebody must have told them.
Honestly, I don't dislike the Who's. I think the animations is... Well, the animation style, I gotta be honest, there's something about the way that this movie is animated that puts me into fight or flight response. But that's not responsible specifically for the Who. I don't know how to explain it. I don't dislike the Who's. I think they look more like human, but they look... I think the fact that they're animated helps. Because you can have those, like, cute little noses and, like, kind of weird proportions. They do seem more like humans. They don't have, like, the hair all over them. I would say it's, like, a combination of, like, the live action and the animated one. Personality-wise, I like the Who's a lot. I think, you know, they're very nice. They're all very welcoming. Enjoyed the characterization of them. You know, it is, like, a very busy city, and, like, they're all... It feels like a normal city. This is, again, it feels like the thing with this movie is that stuff is not exaggerated. Like,
Yeah.
it feels very normalized and very humanizing, honestly, to the Who's.
It's quite a contrast from
Yeah.
really the other two.
Yeah, and I understand that sort of like with the first movie, the Grinch is there to learn the lesson. In the second movie, everyone is learning the lesson. In the 2018 version, Cindy is kind of learning. Like, she does understand to an extent. Like, she's not like a bratty kid who has like, I want all these things for Christmas. But we don't really see a lot of discussion about people like being obsessed with stuff.
The message is kind of watered down.
Yeah.
His hatred is watered down, their personality is.
Yeah.
And part of the original story is kind of the glamorization of Christmas and commercialization. And I think you're right that in humanizing the Who's, creating a weaker backstory, making him not as mean to his dog and to the people, kind of just dumbs down all of that and makes it less effective.
For the ranking for this one, this is hard, actually. So I might need your help with the ranking for this one.
I'm going to come back to the source material for this argument because Dr. Seuss uses the Who population species in many of his books. And to be fair, the original adaptation is faithful to what the Who's have been characterized. And in 2000, they're not very likable. They're funny, because we're laughing at them, not with them.
Yeah.
And in 2018, they're more like humans.
So do we want to say first place 1966 and then tied for 2000 and 2018?
Sure.
So now that we've talked about all the characters, let's focus on some of the other aspects. Let's talk about the setting.
I'm very excited for this one.
So in the 1966 version, it's very sparse, obviously. It's from 1966. I imagine they didn't have much of a budget. I don't know what the budget was. But I really, really like it because I think despite the fact that it's sparse, they're able to capture sort of the essence of who these characters are. Whoville, very late 60s. A lot of citrus colors, which isn't very Christmassy, but somehow it works. It's very, like, bright, but it's not, like, neon in your face.
But though some parts are truly psychedelic.
And then for the Grinch, his cave, again, very sparse except for any furniture that's, like, necessary to the scene. But I think that that works because even the things that are there are sort of, like, broken or, like, in disrepair. And I think it just kind of shows sort of, like, what he's living like. The 2000 version, speaking of desaturated movies, this movie is so desaturated, especially Whoville. Whoville looks like there's a smog over it. And I understand that's the point. But I don't have to like it, even though it's the point.
I think, so in the 2000 version, whenever the Grinch is on screen, they have a green spotlight on him. Don't know if you've noticed that. Don't know how you could miss it. But don't know if you've noticed that. But it's an interesting little take because it
makes it stand out
They
more.
wouldn't need that if the colors weren't so muted.
Yeah.
Why are the colors muted? I have yet to figure that out.
I think they're meant to kind of show how meaningless everything is in Whoville. Like, it's all very... The other thing about Whoville is it does have, like, the crazy architecture that you'd see in, like, the animated Dr. Seuss. But it is made to look very urban. The streets are constantly busy. It is, like...
Can I say something, too, that I know? I have a few things to say about 2000... era Whoville.
Yeah.
Okay? Number one, how does this justice system work? Because they have what seems like one police officer who just has his car parked outside of his house, and when somebody apologizes for their crime...
He did return everything.
Well, I guess everything's back and accounted for. What happens when you have a truly dangerous Who on the loose in those streets? Like, where do you put them? Up in another cave? Second of all, who designed their streets? They don't have any sidewalks. People just walk down the middle of the streets and there's cars flying past and going around them. They don't even plow them.
Contrast that, I love the design of the Grinch's cave. It's
very cool.
so good. Like, they keep that kind of sparsity. Like, it does still feel very empty, but, like, it also has sort of, like, the same sort of industrialism that Whoville has, but in a way that feels like found and reclaimed stuff. We've got that junk stuff. Nothing is really, like, as it's supposed to be. All right, and then the 2018 version. I'm not sure how much you have to say about this. I have a lot of thoughts.
Go ahead.
My feelings about the 2000 version completely flipped for the 2018 version. I love Whoville in the 2018 version. It is my favorite of the Whovilles. because it's like the way it's designed is very like going up, like the town like rises up. It's so hard to describe. It's so cozy feeling. There's a part at the beginning where they're like opening up the street to like people are like opening shops and stuff, and like they're like just basically pressing a button and like everything like unfolds, and it feels so cozy and welcoming. The Grinch's lair, hate it. There is nothing in that to tell me about anything about the character of the Grinch. It's just a house. He happens to live in a cave, but like he's got a kitchen with cupboards and like just a bedroom that's just a normal bedroom that has natural light pouring in the morning. And I was like, this is just a house. I hate it so much.
2000, yes, the color was a bit muted. They did a good job with the construction of the setting itself, I think. And the design of, you're right, because a large part of the movie does take place in his cave. Yeah. And I found it interesting too, the kind of tour that we get of the cave and the way that they set up him slowly going through the cave and the different parts of it, and even just like the garbage dump that's outside of his cave.
There's more world building and character analysis that you can do through the setting of the 2000 version. So are we saying that for setting wise, we're saying the 2000 version is in first place?
I think there's a difference between setting and lighting.
For 2018 or 1966? I'm thinking 1966.
Really?
Yes, because I think even though it's sparse, I think we do get some characterization of these characters through the way it's designed. But I do want to give like half a point to the other one, just because I do think that the way that they have, I think the Whoville in that one is my favorite of all the Whovilles.
It deserves a shout out.
I think
some sort of recognition.
Just the Whoville.
Just as Jim Carrey should have won an Academy Award, Whoville in 2018 deserves half a point from us.
So now we're talking about music. Yay. Okay, so in the 1966 version, absolute classics. I mean, Fahu Fores.
Dahu Dores.
#1 chart topper.
Was it?
No. But that one and You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch have been in both of the other ones because they're just so iconic. Yeah. And then there's also another one that's plays at the beginning at the Trimp the Tree with Christmas.
I love that song.
That one's not in the other ones.
No.
Remarkably, but it's such a good, like it's so cheerful and lovely, and I think it sets up the Whoville really nicely. The 2000 version, there's honestly not that much to think about.
It's not a musical. We have the addition of Where Are You Christmas, which is
obviously iconic.
Lovely. I don't think that it was really necessary.
No, not
Sorry.
really.
I love that song. I don't think that it was a necessary addition.
You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch in that one?
Very
jazzy cover.
Very jazzy.
Jim
Carrey's rendition. And interesting take on the song and the lyrics.
2018. Pentatonics. Obviously good, but the Pentatonics did not record that for the movie. No. It's just a pre-recorded thing that they did for something else, so I don't know if we can really give them credit for that.
Also wasn't necessary.
No. The other thing I will say, though, for music for this one is that there's a lot of parts of the Who's, like, caroling together. Like, there's a part where the Grinch, like, sees a group of them, like, in his neighbor's house, like, singing together. Some of the harmonies and when the Who's are caroling together, beautiful. For me, I'd say the 1966 version has to be in first place because it like set the precedent. It had original songs that were so iconic that they're still used. And okay, sorry, I gotta talk about this. How could I forget? I think it was so bad I blocked it out of my memory. The 2018 version has a rap cover of You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch.
Who performs it?
I think Pharrell Williams.
Oh. Is it part of... No,
it's not even when he's doing the planning. It's just when he's getting ready for his day at the beginning.
Oh, that's a disgrace.
It's awful. I can't abide that. So I have to say... I'd say 1966 in first place. Then I'm going to say 2000 in second place, simply because I love the adaptation of You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch.
I almost think
and then 2018 does not deserve points. Now we're going to dive back into specifics because I want to talk about some specific scenes or the way things are portrayed. And the first one is the actual stealing of Christmas. Because this is a fairly pivotal part of the movie. what it's titled, in the first two at least. The 1966 version, I love it. It's so unique. He uses so many like different like cool ways of doing things. The pool shot to like knock the ornaments off the tree. The magnet to get like the nails out for all the stockings to fall into the bag.
It is more intriguing the way that he does it too, right? I feel like jumping ahead to the 2000 version, it's this big chaotic montage with intercuts.
It feels like a fever dream.
Intercuts of Jim Carrey standing in front of a camera going hee hee ho ha ha ha. Whereas in the original version, it's very planned out, and you're watching how he's doing all of these things in a very creative way.
And they're all very unique. Some of my favorite animation moments in this movie come from these scenes. The first one's when he's like slithering across the floor. There's something way that's animated. And then the other one is when he's like going through the ice box and it like cracks the ice and they all fall in.
This was a great way for them to adapt the book too. On the flip side, 2000. It's entertaining.
It's really funny. My favorite moment in this movie also comes from the stealing scene, and it happens when they have the narration of he slunk to the ice box and he just like slides up to him and goes, slunk.
My favorite moment in this movie, in the 2000 version, is when he's stealing and Cindy Lou catches him and he's behind the tree.
Yes, oh my gosh.
That's my favorite moment.
There is still sort of like creativity in the way that things are being done. One of my favorite other moments in that one is the part where he literally is stealing sugar plums from a drain thought bubble. He's got like the big vacuum, the moths that he releases at the first house. And 2018 version, I hate it. They gave the Grinch laser guns. He spends so much time planning for this theft. He even gets a reindeer. Feels like super high tech, and he's got these like laser candy cane guns that shoot nets out at the presents, and that's the only thing he does. Like, I can't, there's nothing about the stealing that stands out to me because they don't do anything like new.
And the more you're talking about the 2018 version, I'm remembering why I haven't watched it since it first came out, because I remember now going to see it in theaters and just being so disappointed that they felt the need to remake this movie and somehow do everything wrong. It's missing the point and it's not adding anything. It didn't need to be made. I'm sorry.
With the 2000s version, I think you can tell that they love this story and they wanted to like have fun with it. Whereas this movie, it feels like they were like, well, kids these days, they get scared pretty easily, so let's make the Grinch not that mean. It takes out all the fun of the Grinch. So I think that movie, the 2018 version, is obviously in last place for us. Are we saying 1966 in first place and 2000 in second place?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
The final thing we're going to talk about is some of the final scenes in the movies. We're going to be talking about The Lesson. 1966 version, very classic, you know. He's like, oh, maybe Christmas isn't about the things. And then his heart grows 3 sizes. My criticism, why is that enough to change his heart?
About everything?
About everything.
Life in general?
Yeah, about everything. Like, suddenly he's like, oh, I thought they were just about the things. And then it's like, but they're doing it anyways. But the reason he hates them is, like, they're so loud. He'll talk about, like, them, and then they'll sing. They'll get together and sing. And then what they do on Christmas Day, they get together and sing. And he's like, huh. I guess maybe it's not so bad. Which is something, moving on to the 2000 version, I think they do well, because they set up why he hates them is because they're all about stuff. And then for him having that change of heart makes sense. He's seeing that they can have a change of heart. And we already had that seed planted earlier where Cindy Lou, who asks for the Santa to bring him a present, that he kind of can see that he could be included again. I think that kind of ends up as a good trigger for him being like, oh, well, if they can have a change of heart, then maybe I'll be okay. And also, I just gotta say, the scene where, like, his heart starts growing, very funny. But then immediately after that, with the sunrise, and there's, like, this beautiful sunrise, and he's crying, genuinely a really beautiful scene.
I know. I was gonna say, too, with the original film, the lesson with the original movie is that the Who's aren't upset by the fact that the gifts are taken at all. The lesson is more towards Christmas rather than life itself. Yeah. But it's through their singing and their rejoicing that he realizes that it is not about the stuff to them. That is such a simple yet effective message. Whereas in the 2000 version, it is more about faith in humanity. That all it takes is one person really to make that change. And Cindy Lou, even though she's one of the smallest, even though she hasn't grown into her nose and she is a little weird, she can make a difference and she can influence her community. It's a different message, but I think that it's done effectively in both of them.
We kind of see that ripple effect. All of Whoville is learning that it's not commercialized. I mean, the Grinch doesn't really learn a lesson. Like, he just sort of like realizes that people can change. Like, that's
he just has healing from his emotional and psychological trauma.
2018 version, I don't really think the Grinch needs to change. Hot take. 2018 Grinch, he's just sad and lonely, and the reason that he has this change of heart doesn't make any sense, because with Cindy, her asking him like, oh, can you do something nice for my mom, that should honestly make him more angry. It's like, you've got a mom? Screw you! You're definitely not getting anything for Christmas now. And then her mom being like, but Cindy, it's not about stuff. Like, he didn't steal Christmas, he just stole stuff. But like, there's been no precedent set for the amount of stuff. And that's the thing with this movie, is I love how cozy Whoville is, but there's really no sense of like how big everything is.
We see the craziness when they go to the post office, when they're doing the shopping at the beginning.
And the Whobilation. Like, we see how big and crazy Christmas is. There's no precedent for that set in the 2018 version.
In 2000 as well, there's a sort of another lesson of sometimes we have traditions just for the sake of having traditions, and we don't really think about them very much, what the meaning is or how important they are.
In the 2018 version, the only thing that shows like the spectacle is that the mayor wants to have Christmas. I think it's like 100 times bigger, or like 3 times bigger. Those are very different numbers. Some of the stuff that these people are putting up on their houses, like, I've seen people with more lights and blow up things outside their house in real life. They have like this huge Christmas tree, but everyone in town brings a homemade ornament to put on this Christmas tree. So I just feel like the lesson doesn't hit. It doesn't fix anything. He's still alone. This doesn't really feel like he needs to learn a lesson. It just feels like he needs to be inclusive.
Is that what the lesson is? Invite your introvert friends to more things.
So I'm saying that's in last place, because there was no lesson and he didn't really need a lesson.
I think in 2000 there are more lessons, and the lesson is more widespread.
Yeah.
So I think 2000 deserves first place for lesson. 1966, it does a good job at, especially in the amount of time that they have, to be able to pull off a story with an effective lesson during that time is pretty impressive.
Yeah. So that is all of the categories that we wanted to go over for these movies to build up our ranking. And we have our final ranking. It's close for 2 of them. In last place with 4.5 points is the 2018's The Grinch. I think I might have miscalculated something, to be honest. But we're gonna give it to them, because otherwise it's just a little bit sad. Very close for first and second place. We're going from 4.5 to 11 points. And with 11 points is the 1966 adaptation, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which means obviously in first place is a 2000s version with 13.5 points, which again I don't think it ever came in last place. It was the only one that only came in second and first. So yeah, obviously these are very different experiences for watching this movie.
And since we are talking about nostalgia as well, I think a lot of people, especially around our age, have very fond memories of the 2000 version. That's the one, when we think of the Grinch, that's often the one that people think of.
Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe a bit of a nostalgia that comes into play, but we were really talking about the technical aspects of it. So,
well, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed, and let us know in the comments, what is your favorite Grinch movie? And let us know. We'd love to hear. But that's it for today. Merry Christmas to you all, and try to remember to spend time with your family rather than getting some new crazy presents. I was gonna use a Who name for something, but they're all insane and I couldn't think of any.
Yeah. Maybe have a Who roast beast. Yeah. We're losing our minds, I think. We've been here for a long time.
All right. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Bye.
Action, let's go. Our work here is finished.